You guys must be in a really great mood. I'm in a good mood because my microphone is on and I'm off to a pretty good start so far. It's always embarrassing for the first 50 minutes or seconds of your live stream to be muted. This time I don't seem to be dealing with that. But you never know. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm live. It does seem like I'm live now. Okay, fair enough. So the Niners just destroyed the New England Patriots. It kind of feels like they ended the Patriots dynasty a little bit. Hold on. I got one of my sources is texting me. Okay, I'm gonna get to this in a minute. Aha! I got some sources. Okay. So we should talk about the Niners look, before we get to the Niners, I just want to talk about the Patriots real quick. Wasn't that cool how awful they were? Look, Bill Belichick gets a lot of credit for being, quote unquote, the greatest coach of all time. That is up for debate. The guy has accomplished zilch as a head coach without Tom Brady. And to me, this was a big year for both of them. They both went out on their own and they're both trying to cement their legacy forever. Brady left and he's playing great. Belichick's on his own and it ain't looking so good, buddy. 2-4, gave up 33 points to a quarterback who isn't even throwing a tight spiral consistently, to a team that runs and throws screens all day. Nice, Bill. Way to go. Starting to look like maybe he owes a lot to Tom Brady. I mean, without Tom Brady, what's the difference between Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia? A couple of guys who have zero people skills and try to act like being robotic is the best way to deal with people. I don't know. Maybe it was just having Tom Brady. Maybe that was so good about the Patriots. I mean, you compare Bill Belichick to Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh developed two quarterbacks, not one, two quarterbacks. Joe Gibbs. How about Joe Gibbs, the guy no one ever mentions in the conversation of greatest coaches of all time? 3 rings, 3 different quarterbacks. Bill. Well, maybe he'd have a second ring if he had Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's get to Jimmy Garoppolo. Who cares about the Patriots? If you look at the box score, you think Jimmy Garoppolo played a really good game. He was 20-25. That's 80% completion rate. That's impressive. He had a lot of yards. But if you watch the game, you're like, he won. But I think what we see with Jimmy is a guy who's played his entire career for Bill Belichick and Kyle Shanahan. That helps. A lot of these passes that he had today were easy. The screens, the shovels, the wide open pass to Brandon Ayuk. The thing that's concerning about Jimmy, to me, is that he has no confidence still. Anytime he throws the ball past the line of scrimmage, it's a freaking adventure. He doesn't miss all of them, but the pass to Ayuk down the field was bad. His first interception, the one he threw over Kittle, was bad. The second interception, he just chucked the ball into double coverage. That was a bad decision, a JV mistake. I don't want to get on the guy too much because he's 24-7 as a starter, and he won again on the road against the Patriots. But really, you guys, I mean, don't look at the box score because I don't think Shanahan cares about the box score. The box score really is a reflection of Shanahan. The last 2 weeks, use your eyes, watch Garoppolo. Does that look like a quarterback who's worth $27 million a year? It looks like a quarterback whose confidence comes and goes by the snap. I mean, what I see from him is a guy who's having trouble throwing a spiral consistently. The interception that he threw over Kittle's head was a duck, and it didn't get tipped. So, I mean, sure, like people say not my money. Yeah, but it's the team's cap space. Buckner's gone because you had to keep Garoppolo. It's not like baseball. This is an issue. He's taking up cap space that he shouldn't take up. So what I want to say is, look, the Niners blew it this offseason not getting Tom Brady. It's a fact. Tom Brady threw 4 touchdown passes today. He had a game a few weeks ago where he had 5 touchdown passes. At 44, Tom Brady is better than Jimmy Garoppolo ever has been and ever will be. If the Niners had Tom Brady right now, they would be the unquestioned Super Bowl favorites. Instead, You're looking at a 4-3 team that has promise, but you're like, I don't know if this offense without any throws past the line of scrimmage is going to get it done, because it won't get it done. Now, they have the next 2 months to expand and get Jimmy Garoppolo playing more like he played last year, but guys, they should just have Tom Brady right now. Honestly. So should the Patriots. 2 teams today that convinced themselves they didn't want Tom Brady. That's pretty funny. The Niners worked around it. The Patriots really didn't. What an ego on Bill Belichick to think that he didn't need Tom. Even 40. Hey, give me Cam Newton. I don't care. Give me Jared Stidham. Have fun with that, Bill. But Jimmy, I mean, he has played better than Nick Mullins. He's established himself as the best quarterback on the 49ers. Finally. It only took you 3 years to establish yourself as the best quarterback on the Niners. Good going, but still, I can't help but notice that you really lack confidence and you're not as good as the guy you were supposed to replace 4 years ago. Tom Brady still is elite, and if the Niners had him, they'd also have Rob Gronkowski. Imagine that. Gronkowski, Kittle, Juszczyk, JaMychal Hasty, Brandon Ayuk. I mean, it would be unfair. Instead, the Niners are right there with other good teams. And going into Seattle, you're thinking, that's a tough one. I don't know. They beat the Patriots, but the Seahawks are a much bigger test. So I just want to take credit for, I tried. I really tried. I said, Niners, sign Tom Brady. They thought about it. They balked. You guys, I blame you, because every time I made a video or an article and said, hey, maybe Tom Brady, you guys are like, stop. You're ruining my offseason. I'm enjoying Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm rooting for Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe in Jimmy Garoppolo. That's the thing. Niner fans want Jimmy Garoppolo to play well. They see this game where he throws 2 picks and has a quarterback rating of 75 and pads his numbers with a bunch of shovel passes and screens, and they're like, I don't care, man. I want to have a good quarterback on the Niners. And a lot of you guys are like 20, 25. I've never seen a good quarterback on the Niners. You're dying for Jimmy to be what you need him to be. He ain't. He is a guy who is struggling with confidence, struggling with the forward pass. He is a pocket, non-mobile quarterback who is rediscovering the forward pass. I mean, you can win with him, but he ain't Tom Brady. And it's just too bad that the Niners really passed up an opportunity to just win the Super Bowl. If they had Brady right now, my goodness. Instead, they got a guy who is like, he's the little engine that could. He's the, I think I can. Brady's just like, I know I can. I've done it. I did it again. Oh, still got it. Okay, so I'm taking credit. You guys probably all shut down and don't want to listen anymore because I brought up Tom Brady. But I'm right, baby. I'm right. Okay, so they messed up with that. But Kyle Shanahan, 2 weeks in a row, he's been on fire. And the game plan he used against the Rams was, as I call it, training wheels offense for Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like, okay, all right, you're feeling a little uncomfortable. You're throwing some picks. Hey, just hand off, throw some shovel passes and some screens. It worked. They got 24 points against the Rams. It fell apart once Mostert left the game. And what we were talking about this week was like, can Shanahan do that again? Or does he have to overhaul the offense? Well, he built on it. The shovel passes were still there. The run game was still there. But what I noticed early on when Jimmy Garoppolo was playing well before the interception, he was consistently getting to the second read in his progression, which you got to do against Bill Belichick. Is he going to take away your first read based on tendency? So you kept seeing Jimmy Garoppolo look down the field, check down. Look down the field, check down. That's a big step for him. And to give Kyle Shanahan credit, the check down option typically was Deebo Samuel. It's a hell of a check down guy. All you got to do is flip the ball to the sideline behind the line of scrimmage to Deebo Samuel, who's probably going to pick up 15 yards and break 2 tackles. That makes your quarterback's life real easy. You talk about a security blanket. That's a hell of a security blanket. So I like that. That was Shanahan building on what he did last week and proving that he can create an offense around a limited quarterback. Now, if he had it his way, he wouldn't have to do all this while paying a quarterback $27 million a year. The whole point of paying a quarterback $27 million a year is to not have to use the training wheels offense. to not have to call 18 screens a game. But he's got who he's got. Could have had Tom Brady. He balked. He's got Jimmy Garoppolo. Make it work, buddy. I don't want to hear a complaint. It's a lot of like implied complaints from Shanahan, like all these whispers around the league. You heard that's the whisper from Jason LaCanfora, got in on the act. Every insider knows that Kyle Shanahan doesn't like Jimmy Garoppolo. Make it work, buddy. Let's see it's the best you got. Make it work. You could have had Tom Brady. Don't tell me that you're stuck with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's 24-7. He does certain things well. You could have had Tom Brady. This is who you wanted. Make it work. And he is. To give Kyle Shanahan credit, he's been masterful the last 2 weeks. It's almost like he's using the Rams offense. A lot of jet sweeps and new age stuff. A lot of gadget plays. And what I thought was so cool about him using that against the Rams last week, it's like he beat the Rams with their own offense. Their defensive coordinator couldn't stop something he sees every day in practice. That was great. That's trolling, and I'm a master troll. I like that. And then today, he used that stuff to beat Bill Belichick. Belichick, the guy who eviscerated Sean McVay in the Super Bowl. Shut that stuff down. Kyle Shanahan took Sean McVay's stuff and was like, okay, here, Sean. Here's how you do it. Here's how I would have called your offense in the Super Bowl. Other thing about Kyle, dude has a 21-point lead at halftime or something like that and doesn't blow it. Oh, my God. He held on to a 20-point second-half lead against the Patriots. That's amazing. Baby steps. Really a great game for Kyle Shanahan. I give him – it's almost like he's been the Niners quarterback the last 2 weeks. You almost feel like he's watching from the sideline being like, man, I can make that throw. Man, we really got to pay this guy all this money. He really makes twice what I make, almost 3 times. Grant Cohn could make that throw, and he's got little hands. Okay, I was fantastic this week, though. I told, and you guys know this, I said, Kyle, you got to get Kyle Juszczyk involved big time in this game. I'm saying 5 touches minimum, and it should be that way every week because he's one of your best players. You call him an offensive weapon, and you're basically just using him as a blocker. What happened? Kyle Juszczyk, 4 carries, touchdown. Had a drop, but he also had a catch. That guy is good. I take full responsibility and credit for Juszczyk getting the ball. Shanahan's had 3.5 seasons to figure this out, hasn't done it. All of a sudden, I make a stink about it. Boom. This should be how it goes every week. I asked George Kittle after the game what it does for the offense when Kyle Juszczyk is getting the ball. And after expressing how much he loves me and how much he misses me, it's like, enough, George, enough. We get it. He said, really, Juszczyk fires up the whole offense. He's so good. He sort of has a George Kittle effect. Kittle's energy is infectious. So is Juszczyk. And he's always so fired up after he gets the ball. He's always like wide open. The guy that the opposing team, the enemy, as my friend Botan from Hungary would say, the enemy forgets about. 5 touches a game, you win. I'd like to know a stat. The Niners splits when Kyle Juszczyk gets at least 5 touches. What is their record? Probably terrible. But I'd like to think it's good because it was my idea. So Kyle Juszczyk, what an underrated baller. What an excellent player. He's the focal point of the run game just by blocking, but he's also one of the best route runners, one of the most complete players on the team, and he was being forgotten. I got him back in the fold. Kyle Juszczyk, you owe me a 50-cent piece for that, baby. I'm just trying to help. How about, okay, Deebo Samuel. He's got a hamstring injury. That's not good. The thing about Deebo is he tends to get hurt. He got hurt in college. He plays so hard. This might be kind of where he's at. What he does. Plays super hard, gets banged up, misses a couple games. But when he's healthy and in the game, I've been going back and forth with my partner Vish about who the most important player on the Niners offense is, and I keep saying it's Mostert. Well, today was a really good game for Vish and his argument because Mostert's gone, Deebo's there. All of a sudden, Jeff Wilson Jr. is freaking Bo Jackson. And so what it looks like is Deebo Samuel going in motion behind the line of scrimmage makes enemy defenses, opposing defenses panic so much. He's like Tyreek Hill. He's eye candy. He starts moving. Everyone looks at him. And so the carry goes to, doesn't matter. It could be Wilson. It could be Mostert. It could be Hasty. Just the fact that the defense's attention is diverted and they're looking at two different places, big plays one way or another. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to the Niners offense when Deebo's out, if he's out. Because you see, he is the source, the outlet of all of Kyle Shanahan's creativity. Kittle's still great, but what gadget plays does Kittle run? It's like you go to Kittle on 3rd and 10. When you really need Kittle, Shanahan's like, yeah, it's my best player. I'm going to go to Kittle. But on 1st down, when Shanahan's trying to dazzle you, it's not Kittle. It's Deebo. Deebo the decoy. Deebo the ball carrier. I mean, it seemed like in this game, he trusted Deebo more than any running back on his roster to get to the edge. When they really wanted to run outside, Deebo either ran a reverse or straight up line in the backfield. What a weapon. I've compared him to Percy Harvin, but if you use Percy Harvin that much in this way, he'd break. He's too small. Deebo Samuel's like a 20. He's like Percy Harvin plus 25 pounds. And he tends to break too. To be fair, he tends to break too. Deebo Samuel, that's his issue. But what a freaking weapon. I mean, every offense would be better with a player like him. He's just eye candy. He's like, it's like 3-card Monty. You know what I mean? When the guy's like, and he picks one up, he shows it in your face, and not the one that's like, oh, why am I looking at that? I lost it. That's Deebo. So fun to watch. It's incredible the impact he has on the team. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he leaves. Let's talk about the running backs. All week I'm saying JaMycal Hasty needs to start. Well, I'm not a head coach. Kyle Shanahan sees him in practice. He went with the veteran, Jeff Wilson Jr., who I believe has started games before in the league, and he was right. Who knows if JaMycal Hasty was up for that, ready to start his first career game as a rookie in New England. All it takes is one fumble, and you lose the game, you lose the player, he's crushed. Maybe you want to take him a little slower. That's what Shanahan did. He started Jeff Wilson. Wow! Jeff Wilson Jr. Looking like Jeff Wilson Sr. out there a little bit. A little bit. He runs really freaking hard. I mean, Mostert runs hard too, but Jeff Wilson Jr. runs like the hardest running back I've ever seen on the Niners. Even Frank Gore would kind of like take glancing blows and duck under and protect himself, as you should. Jeff Wilson Jr. left this game with a high ankle sprain, but God, when he would even sometimes he would catch the check down pass in the flat that Deebo Samuel was catching and was just as violent and dangerous. Hell of a player. And not just a product of the scheme, not just a product of Deebo Samuel. And I say that because he's a really good receiver too. You see it. Really good hands. Catches the ball away from his frame like a wide receiver. And then, God, he's so physical after. I mean, compare him to Carlos Hyde. We saw Carlos Hyde for a long time. He was a terrible receiver. For a big guy, he was kind of a finesse runner. He'd get the ball in the shotgun and bounce to the outside. Bounce. He was like Jay-Z. He'd get the ball, bounce. No, don't bounce. Get upfield. Jeff Wilson Jr., no bouncing. I love watching that guy. So they made the right call starting him. I hope he gets healthy. It looks like high ankle sprain, not going to have him for a while. JaMycal Hasty comes in. Baller. Better than Jeff Wilson Jr. As good as Jeff Wilson Jr. is, he's steady, tough, dependable. JaMycal Hasty is explosive. He averaged like 9 yards a carry. My goodness. What a player. 10 yards carry, 9 yards carry, something like that. Really hell of a good player. Actually, I can't do math. Maybe he was more like 7 yards carry. I don't know. But it was pretty good. It was like 50-something yards on 9 carries. So that'd be like, what, 6 yards carry? Okay, 6. I went to UCLA. How about that? I bet they wish they hadn't accepted me. He's really explosive. And what's interesting is if Wilson misses the next game, Hasty should start next week against the Seahawks. Tevin Coleman should never start another game for the 49ers. Imagine what the Niners could have done last year. They just not played Tevin Coleman and given all of his snaps to Jeff Wilson Jr. They might have won the Super Bowl. Every time one of the Niners' high-priced players goes down and a backup gets to play, he's better, and you wonder, I mean, what if the Niners didn't have to play these overpriced busts? It's like, it's amazing. Tevin Coleman and Jerick McKinnon don't work out. Great. They have better players who make nothing. That's not fair. The next man up mentality shouldn't be like, guy gets hurt, the no-name backup is even better. And that's what happens every single time to the 49ers. Every single time. They're lucky because drafting, trading, signing, it's not their thing. Developing day 3 picks is definitely their thing. Undrafted, wow, they're the best. They're better than the Patriots. That is what makes the Niners player development. No team does it like them. Not the Seahawks, not the Ravens, not the Steelers, not the Patriots, the Niners. And every time it's like, well, JaMychal Hasty, are we surprised? No. No. Haranis Grasu, are we surprised? No. The Niners develop players better than anyone else. Haranis Grasu was a 3rd-round pick, been a bust, bounced around the league, comes to the Niners, settles down the whole offensive line. He's what they needed. He was decent week 1 against the Cardinals, loses his job to Ben Garland, who played in the Super Bowl. Garland was awful all year. To be fair, he missed all of training camp, had no preseason, had no minicamp, had no OTAs. What are you going to expect? Grasu played in training camp, and he was terrific today. All of a sudden, he's getting the line calls right. He's getting there's no miscommunications. Who is this guy? The Niners' backups are arguably better than their starters. I mean, what happened? I'd like to see Justin School get a shot at right tackle. I mean, Mike McGlinchey's okay, but God, if this pattern holds, Justin School is going to be a big-time upgrade. Right? So Grasu was great. Grasu was clutch. He needs to hold on to that job. Don't give it back to Ben Garland. This is a strange year. And you got to not think about what players are or where they were in the past. You got to be honest about what they are now, because they all worked out on their own during the offseason. They all had their own training camp, their own OTAs and minicamp, and you don't know how they worked out. They meant well, but you don't know how successful their personal private training regimen was. If you supervise them, you could know, but you didn't. So some of these players are ready to go and some of them aren't. Garland, not ready to go. Grasu is ready to go. Stick with Grasu. He makes your offense better. Big addition. Real quick, additions that have saved the 49ers, or players who have saved the 49ers this year. Grasu, JaMychal Hasty, Jeff Wilson Jr., Tavarius Moore, Jason Verrett, Azeez Al-Shaair, Marcel Harris, Emmanuel Mosley, Kerry Hyder. Who is this team? How does every single player step up like that? Except for Deion Jordan. You stuck. I'm sorry, Deion. You stink. The Niners need Ronald Blair back real fast because Deion Jordan wants to lose games. Like the Niners be playing like historically great defense, and Deion Jordan's like, no, hold on, I'm here. Let me get this roughing the quarterback pass penalty real quick. I contributed. I did my thing. One more offense, and then we'll get big into defense. Brandon Ayuk, he's interesting. I think some people are starting to be like, I'm not that into Brandon Ayuk. And some people are like, wait a second, he's really good. And I think I'd be in the second camp. Now, you ever heard of a Rorschach test, the ink blot test, where you look at something and it's just a blotches of ink, and what you see reveals your inner biases? I think that touchdown, that interception, the second one right before halftime, that was an ink blot test, an ink blot test. That was a Rorschach test. If you saw the interception and blamed Ayuk, you're a huge Jimmy Garoppolo fan. A lot of people were like, Ayuk needs to fight for that. Okay, and maybe he should have. If you feel that way, you are an unabashed Jimmy Garoppolo fan. And then other people were like, well, he was double covered. There were two guys boxing him out. There's only so much he could do. Just the fact that he was double covered mean that pass should have never gone to him. That was a horrendous decision. And probably people who say that are Jimmy Garoppolo haters. I would probably agree with the second one. I mean, the guy's double covered. What do you want him to do? How do you go to the sideline and be like, hey, Brandon, you got to fight for that? Brandon be like, you got to not throw into double coverage, bro. That's not my fault. I didn't wave my arm around and say, everyone cover me. And the fact that I'm double covered means someone else is open. So I can put that one on Jimmy. But Ayuk, 115 receiving yards. He's good after the catch. He's good on the gadget stuff. He's not as fearless as Deebo Samuel. He protects himself a little bit more. Maybe that's a good thing. Deebo's hurt all the time. You know Deebo's style of play is not sustainable. Let's be clear. Let's be honest with ourselves. Deebo's one of the most fun players to watch in the NFL, but he can't keep playing like that. And once he gets the big contract, he probably won't keep playing like that. That's life. I wouldn't keep playing like that if I were him, if I got paid. That's dangerous and painful. And it'll shorten your career and cost you money. Ayuk seems like his style is more sustainable. 115 yards in his seventh game, something like a seventh game as a rookie. That's nice. Big yards after the catch. And who's to say he wouldn't have bigger numbers right now if he had a quarterback who could consistently throw the ball past the line of scrimmage? A quarterback who mastered the forward pass. Because right now the Niners are kind of a sideways pass and backwards pass offense, which is fine. They're winning games that way. But how good is Brandon Ayuk really going to look with a quarterback like this? Deebo, it suits Deebo. We don't really know what kind of wide receiver Deebo Samuel is, what kind of route runner, what kind of hands he has. He dropped a lot of passes last year, but on this offense, it doesn't matter. He's a running back, basically. He's a glorified running back on this offense with good hands. Works. If Brandon Ayuk were on the Seahawks or the Patriots, not the Patriots, or the Bucks with Tom Brady, or the Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger, there's a chance he'd be the rookie of the year. Hell of an athlete. But again, he's not getting enough opportunities because he's playing in the dinkiest of the dinky-dunk offenses in the league. So I don't see how you really evaluate the guy. He's an ink block test right now. He's a Rorschach test. So if someone comes up to you and is like, hey, this Brandon Ayuk guy is really blowing it, right? Be like, I know about you. I know about you. You're a Garoppaholic, aren't you? You're a Garoppaholic. Look, the first step of overcoming Garoppaholism is admitting you're a Garoppaholic. And again, if you're 25 or younger, I get it. You missed the Steve Young era. You have never lived through elite quarterback play on your favorite team, and you feel like Jimmy gives you the best chance to see that in your lifetime. I empathize, but he ain't it. I'm sorry. Let's talk about Robert Sala because he's so good. He's so good. You guys were ready to fire him after the Eagles game. No, excuse me, after the Dolphins game. The defense has had roughly 3 bad quarters. 1 bad quarter against the Cardinals, 2 bad quarters, Brian Allen on the field against the Dolphins. Other than that, the defense has been lights out all season, other than 3 quarters. They're missing 8 starters from last year. Their pass rush is abysmal. They won last year with pass rush. They just overwhelmed quarterbacks, and you saw it. And Robert Sala, a lot of people were like, well, how much is it him? Is it just his form in pass rush? I mean, he's a zone coverage guy. He calls mostly cover 3, sprinkles in some cover 4, and has a great pass rush. Why does that make him a genius? Okay. And maybe there was something to that. I mean, how can you really fairly evaluate Robert Sala with the greatest array of talent in the league? Well, I think it's fair to let's look big picture. The first 10 weeks of the season last year, that defense was playing at a historically great level. It was one of the greatest defenses of all time through the first 10 games of that season. It was. Run the numbers. Then injuries started happening, and they didn't end up as the greatest defense of all time. They ended up as an excellent defense. An excellent defense, the best defense in the league last year. This year, they're still excellent, but they're decimated. So they've evolved, they've improved, and Sala has improved. Again, he came to this team with 0 experience as a defensive coordinator, never done the job before. Can't compare him to Vic Fangio. Fangio had been a defensive coordinator in Indianapolis, at Stanford. Was he a D coordinator with the Saints too? He'd been around. He'd had experience. He'd been fired multiple places and learned. Sala, no. Sala's 40. He's a first-time guy. He comes here. He installs what he knows. He installs the Seahawks defense. It's okay. You got to evolve in the league. Bill Walsh evolved. Kyle Shanahan evolves. Sala has evolved. Last year, he mixed up his coverages and implemented the wide nine. This year, he is winning because offensive coordinators don't recognize his scheme. Do you guys understand that? They come into the games and they're like, okay, Robert Sala cover 3 as Seahawks defense. Nope. That ain't it. That's not what he does anymore. Robert Sala is much more like Fangio now. A lot of man-to-man coverage, a lot of split safeties, and a lot of blitzing. Cover 1 with blitzes. And what's interesting is the Niners are disguising their coverage and winning with coverage. You're seeing quarterbacks drop back and be confused. You see it. They're not being rushed. They're not being harassed. They're not being flushed out of the pocket. They drop back. Eric Armstead's caging them in. Kinlaw, Hyder, like you can't leave. Just try to read our coverage and try to throw the ball. And you see these quarterbacks like, what is that? What in the world is that? It looks like zone, but it's man coverage, and Fred Warner gets a pick. They're honestly confusing quarterbacks with coverages. Did you ever expect to see that from Robert Sala? Have you ever seen a defensive coordinator improve and evolve this much in 4 years? I haven't. He's phenomenal. He's clearly brilliant. We knew that when we heard he was a chess master. I mean, you can't just be a chess master and not be brilliant. He thinks multiple moves ahead. But we've always been like, okay, well, he lacks experience. He lacks the ability to adjust mid-game. Okay. Well, how you like him now? I mean, sure, if the Niners lose the next few games and the defense gives up 40 points a game, you're not going to like him too much. But do you think that's coming? It looks like what's coming is a head coaching job for this guy. Because any questions you had about him last year, he's answering now. Was it all the talent? No. Was it all his pass rush? No. Can he vary his coverages? Yes. Look, he's a head coach on this team. The Niners have 2 head coaches, and they're both phenomenal. They're both really good. They have 2 of them. How many teams really have 2 head coaches that are good? The Patriots don't. We've seen what Josh McDaniel does as a head coach. No one likes him. He's terrible. Sala's going to succeed as a head coach. He has the temperament. Players like him. They respect him, and he's brilliant. What an asset. But again, if you guys are into watching film, I'll break this down for you during the week. You got to watch his coverages. They're way different than what he did last year, and teams are confused. They're coming in, okay, like we gotta have 18 different ways to beat cover 3 because they're a cover 3 team. Nope, not anymore. You might not see very many. You might see 5 snaps of cover 3. Again, man free. That's man-to-man coverage with 1 deep safety and a blitzer or an underneath zone defender. 2-man, which is 2 deep safeties, man covered underneath, and quarters, which is 4 deep, 3 underneath zone. That's pretty much what the Niners are doing. They're mixing it up. They're disguising it, and quarterbacks are like, what? Coach, this is not what you said we were going to be seeing. What is this? They're disguising coverages? They're playing man? They're playing quarters? What? Yeah, Robert Sala. He has evolved. The reason this Niners defense is so good is because they're tricking people. I mean, there's a lot of good players on it too, but you see the quarterbacks dropping back like, what? I'm sorry. This was not what was in the game plan. Josh McDaniels, this is not what you said. Yeah, sorry, buddy. I mean, when you see Fred Warner pick off passes like that, you see him in man-to-man coverage on Julian Edelman, quarterbacks look at that like, what is that? Is that man or zone? I don't know. And I'm terrified now. I don't trust my eyes. If I throw it, I'm going to get picked by Fred Warner. You guys all need to give Robert Sala an apology. Like, write him a letter. Passenger pigeon. Send him a carrier pigeon with a little note wrapped on the pigeon's ankle. Dear Robert, I'm sorry. Love, 49ers fan. He'd appreciate it. I don't think people express their gratitude enough in life. Get a carrier pigeon, just a little note on a fortune cookie thing, wrap. We got to talk about Fred Warner, though. Because that guy is the best linebacker in the NFL. And this week I was saying he's better than Navarro Bowman. Because I watched Navarro Bowman. I covered Navarro Bowman's prime. It was glorious. It was short-lived. It was glorious. He could do everything seemingly. Blitz, cover, run sideline to sideline, hit. Warner's better. Bowman was never this dominant on a team that lacked so much talent. He never carried a defense like this. He wasn't as good in coverage as Fred Warner. He couldn't have covered Julian Edelman one-on-one. Fred Warner's ability, he doesn't run a 4.4 like Patrick Willis, but he's so tall, he's so smart, and he's so quick and fluid that he can cover wide receivers. What I want to say is I covered most of Patrick Willis' career, and I don't want to say anything blasphemous here because Patrick Willis' ability to run, his speed was special. I've never seen a linebacker as fast as him. And remember, he was running like that at 240 pounds. He wasn't a 215-pound glorified safety running around. No. He was 240. He ran a 4.4. He could get you between the tackles. He could get you outside the tackles. He could cover. He could cover Jimmy Graham in his prime. Excellent player. Arguably the greatest linebacker in 49ers history, maybe even NFL history. I mean, would Patrick Willis have been any worse than Ray Lewis had Patrick Willis been drafted by the freaking Ravens and not had to play the first 5 seasons of his career or whatever it was with Mike Singletary and Mike Nolan? Something to think about. But as someone who watched most of Willis' career, he couldn't cover Edelman like that. And if you got him down the field covering a tight end like Jimmy Graham, he couldn't play the ball. Remember that playoff game against the Saints? Patrick Willis struggled in that game in coverage. Warner is just such a natural in coverage. He played basically nickelback in college. And you can see that he's so comfortable covering wide receivers. It's unreal. Most linebackers have a little bit of a panic when they go up against any wide receiver, not Warner. So there's that. He's just so fluid, changing direction. But then that's just the beginning. What makes him him is that he's a genius. He is a football genius in a way that I don't know that Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman were. You see him one step ahead of the opposing offense. You see him reading things that other defensive players don't. And when you listen to him, you realize this guy is Robert Sala Jr. As brilliant as Robert Sala is, Fred Warner is an extension of that on the field. His ability to get everyone lined up, no matter what the opposing offense is doing or motioning, do all the checks. I think a lot of the Niners coverage, a lot of the things that they're doing well in coverage, their ability to get people lined up and conceal what they're doing is obvious. I mean, it's partly Sala for installing it, but it's also big part Fred Warner for implementing it on the field, making sure it works, making sure it happens. He's the best linebacker in the league, and he might be the best linebacker I've ever covered. I love Patrick Willis, better athlete than Fred Warner, but the total package, Fred Warner, his ability to cover, how much bigger he's gotten, and how smart he is. Like when you listen to him, when you watch him, he looks like he could be Mike Vrabel in 20 years, like a really good head coach in the NFL. Is Patrick Willis going to be a head coach in the NFL? No. Is Navarro Bowman going to be a head coach in the NFL? No. Those guys are great athletes. Warner's a great athlete too, with a coach's mindset and brain. I've never seen anything like that. Best linebacker in the league, best linebacker I've ever covered. He's moving past Patrick Willis in my mind. Not the athlete Patrick Willis was, but the total package. It's breathtaking. It's phenomenal. I'm sorry. Am I going too far? Did Patrick Willis have consistently intercept passes like this? I don't think so. Again, I consider Jim Harbaugh once called Patrick Willis the Willie Mays of middle linebackers, and I think that was the perfect description and compliment. I'm not taking anything away from Patrick Willis. The Willie Mays of middle linebackers, meaning he was a 5-tool linebacker, did everything right, everything well, off the charts. Fred Warner's a 5-tool linebacker too. And every tool that Harbaugh listed for Willis, sideline to sideline speed, downhill strength, blitzing, coverage, and toughness, I believe. Warner has that, but he has smarts too. He's got the football IQ off the charts. Genius level football IQ. Not saying Willis wasn't smart. Warner has genius level football IQ. So that's where he's bridging the gap right now. And he could finish the season with 5-6 picks. It's unreal. Never seen anything like it. Let's go to Tavarius Moore. Tavarius Moore is the most disrespected member of this organization by the organization. We all like him. He can't sniff playing time. He's been on the team 3 seasons. Has no role. But when he gets in the game, he's fantastic. I was thinking the Niners wouldn't even start him this week. I was like, I don't know, man. They don't really like him. And they brought up Jonathan Cyprien, and they got to stop the run. And no. Is Moore good at tackling? Yes. He had the hardest hits in this game, didn't he? Every time he hit someone, you could hear it on your television. It was like, oh! I am so glad I didn't play freshman football in high school. Wow. Is that what it really sounds like? Tavarius Moore hits hard for a guy who's built like a cornerback. My God. He's a playmaker. He's a hitter. He's improved his tackling. And if he goes against a quarterback who can actually throw the ball, he's an interception waiting to happen. It was nice to see Tavarius Moore play like that. And if the Niners are smart, they tell Jimmy Ward, hey, buddy, hey, take your time. Take your time. Come back when you're ready. They would sing it to him. They're going to get the Delphonics to come in and be like, hey, Jimmy, you don't need to play just yet. No. That's what they're going to say. They're going to have a 4-part barbershop quartet come into the safety room and be like, seriously, though, Jimmy, take your time. Heal up. Let Tavarius Moore play because he's better than you and younger than you and cheaper than you. He's the future of the free safety position for the 49ers. Hell of a player. Really fun to watch him in this game. Seemed like Patriots, every time they got hit by him, they'd be like, who is he? And why did that hurt so much? Again, Bill Belichick, you did not tell me this was coming. Where was this in the game plan? Tavarius Moore hits hard? I didn't know. You guys are mad at me about the Patrick Willis thing, huh? I was just trying to praise Fred Warner. I wasn't trying to be like, hey, by the way, Patrick Willis is overrated. No. I just think Fred Warner needs to be put in context. He's really good, guys. All right. Let's look ahead to next week, and then I'll stop. The Niners now have to go to Seattle. And after beating the Patriots like this, you're thinking well, why can't they beat Seattle? Why can't they beat the freaking Seahawks? The Patriots almost beat them. The Seahawks have no defense. The Niners just scored 33 points on the road. They're clearly way better on the road than they are at home because, I don't know, they missed the fans at Levi Stadium or whatever. Why can't they win next week at Seattle? Pump the brakes. I think we need to be realistic about where the Niners are. They're 4-3. They've won 2 in a row. They're definitely in the mix to make the playoffs. I think we all expect them to make the playoffs. But that doesn't mean they're going to beat the Seahawks next week. And if they lose to the Seahawks next week, that doesn't mean they're pretenders. This was a must-win game specifically because next week's game is so difficult. I call it a scheduled loss. Doesn't mean they'll lose. It just means it's unfair in a lot of ways. It's a second consecutive road game after traveling cross-country. And anyone who's ever been to New England knows that's more than cross-country. Cross-country is SFO to New York. SFO to Boston's an extra hour. And then the way back is awful. It's a 6.5-hour flight back or more. It's tough. You're tired the whole week. You're jet lagged. Then you go up to Seattle and play an even better team, and you have to fly again. Remember what the Vikings looked like when they played the Niners in the playoffs? That's what could happen. The second consecutive playoff game, the second consecutive trip, you're exhausted. And you just don't have the same oomph that you had in the first game. I'm not saying I'm picking the Seahawks to win. What I'm saying is, as a fan, you need to be mentally prepared for the Niners to lose next week and not lose it. If the Niners struggle and give up 35 next week, don't fire Robert Sala, okay? Don't. They could probably get a lose next week. They could win. They're a hell of a team, but it's called a scheduled loss. If they lose, don't write them off. They'll still be 4-4. They'll have the Packers coming in to a home game the week after that. They can win that. All of a sudden, you're looking at the schedule and be like, man, they might go 11-5. They might go 12-4. But this one coming up might be the toughest game left on the schedule, just because it comes right after this game. And I'm not always right on these things, but I'm from experience. The Niners did this before, and I covered it. In 2012, they went to New England, scored a ton of points, let the Patriots come back, but they were playing Brady, not Newton. Still won. It was such a huge win for the Niners. Remember, that was the game Jim Harbaugh afterward had some poetic lines. I was there. He said, it's sort of like growing up next to a train station. You hear the train. The more you hear it, the less you hear it. Same thing with big pressure games. The more you're in pressure games, the less you feel the pressure. That was pretty good stuff from Jim Harbaugh. That was that game. They beat the Patriots. 2012. After that game, you're thinking, Niners are going to just waltz to a Super Bowl victory. Next week, blown out in Seattle. Blown out in Seattle by a team that was not as good as the Niners. That was 2012. The Seahawks weren't quite there yet. The Niners went to the Super Bowl that year. The Seahawks got knocked off. So the Niners got blown out by an inferior team. Why? Because the scheduled loss. So again, it doesn't mean they're going to lose next week, but get ready. It's going to be the toughest task the Niners have had all season. And if the Niners find a way to pull it off, they just might win the Super Bowl. If the Niners find a way to beat the Seahawks next week, they just might win the Super Bowl, even though they should have signed Tom Brady this offseason. I'm never going to let them forget that. I still can't get over the fact that they let Tom Brady go. Tom Brady was like, hey, I would love to play for your team. The Niners were like, Tom Brady? I don't know. Yeah, sorry, Tom. I don't know. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no. I don't know where I was going with that. But really, no. They should be Super Bowl favorites, or at least favorites to come out of the NFC if they can win this game next week. If they beat the Seahawks, and the only test left really is like New Orleans, really basically Tampa. That's another thing I was right about. Hold on. Can I just toot my own horn for the last 2 minutes, and then before I go? All offseason, I was throwing hot take after hot take and trying to get you guys into my YouTube channel and my new SI Sports Illustrated website. And I kept saying, what was I talking about? Oh, yeah, that Tampa Bay was the team to beat in the NFC. I keep losing my train of thought. I kept saying, look, guys, I know the Niners are good. Tampa Bay is the team to beat in the NFC. And you guys are like, how can you say that? They haven't even played a game yet. How you haven't even played a game yet? I know. You have to look forward, not back. You don't just look at last year's standings and be like, well, yeah, that's what's going to be this year. No, you have to project. That's what I did. They got Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, or at least his era, and Rob Gronkowski. Added that to a team that already had a top-flight defense. What were you expecting? Come on, guys. You should have seen that coming. Are the Bucks better than the Niners? Yeah, because they have Tom Brady. Niners could have had Tom Brady. If the Niners had Tom Brady, they'd be better than the Bucks. But again, if the Niners beat the Seahawks next week, it's really down to Tampa and the Niners. So this season just got really interesting. Like at 5 o'clock today, no, maybe not 5, more like 10:30 this morning, we're thinking, they lose this game, they might be selling off players. I was talking in my pregamer. It's like, hey guys, word on the street is if they lose this game, they're going to trade Tart. Well, they ain't trading Tart. Tart's staying. Jaquaski, you're staying. How's it feel? Feel good? This was a momentous game. It was huge. They could have been dead, and now they're as alive as any team in the NFC. That's cool. Wouldn't it be cool if the NFC Championship game was Jimmy Garoppolo versus Tom Brady? That would be cool. I think it might happen. I'd rather see that than Jimmy Garoppolo versus Aaron Rodgers again. Forget Aaron Rodgers. Guy's overrated. He's no Jimmy. He's no Jimmy Garoppolo. I gave him a C+ today. Is that harsh? I don't think so, man. I don't think so. When you're the starting quarterback, when you're the franchise quarterback for the 49ers, the bar is high. When you make $27 million a year, the bar is high. And I'm not going to give you an A for throwing a bunch of screens and shovel passes. Sorry, I'm not. C+. You won. Good job. More good than bad, but do better. Step it up. Okay. I think it's time for me to go eat dinner. Vieri864 said C-. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. He's got to be the most unimpressive 24-7 quarterback of all time. Like, when I watch Jimmy Garoppolo, I think I see Mark Bulger. That's what I see. Do you guys remember Mark Bulger? He was cool. Like, he started off his career with the Rams like 18-4, I think. He was great. He took over for Kurt Warner, who was kind of falling apart, and he needed like 4 or 5 years to get himself together. So they brought in Mark Bulger, and he was like, man, this guy's even better. And it was like, he didn't have a great skill set. He was kind of small, but he was aggressive, and he had a good coach, and eventually it all fell apart. So when I watch Jimmy, I see Mark Bulger, and I kind of always am like waiting for like the Cinderella moment. Like, okay, clock struck midnight. His lack of physical tools are finally going to catch up with him, and he's going to stop being the most lucky quarterback of all time. But hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened yet. No matter what he does, he basically finds a way to win. Got to give it up to him. That's a skill. Until he stops doing it, it's a skill. And Mark Bulger lost the skill pretty quick. He had confidence, then he didn't. He was good, then he wasn't. Jimmy hasn't gotten there yet. Every time it looks like his career's on life support, he's back, baby. He's back with help from Kyle Shanahan. Big time. I'm thinking Jimmy Garoppolo should donate half of his game check today to Kyle. Slide it to him under the table. Hey, Kyle, make that noise too with the little wink. Thanks. All right, guys, I'm going to go eat dinner, have a glass of Pinot, and toast to myself because I don't root for the 49ers. I root for myself, and I continue to do a great job, which is humbling. It's a very humbling experience to be this good and handsome and smart. So I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great evening. See you at 11 a.m. with Vish.